God for that.
We are talking Saltwater, the battle for Ramree Island. Now this is a low-budget British movie directed and written by Steve Lawson. Now Lawson actually wrote and directed the movies I've recently reviewed here on the channel, Ripper Untold and Bram Stoker's Van Helsing. Now I've actually got to know many of the kind of like the names of British and American low-budget filmmakers. And I see their names pop up, directors and producers, in seemingly in quite prolific, amounts of kind of titles that will be coming out, and Lawson's one such name that I've seen on a few films. Now, a lot of these productions, I would say, from certain kind of say directors and filmmakers, often seem to me that they're just kind of like banging out a cheap film made for a few £1,000s or dollars, so they can kind of whack it on with some nice artwork, and then hopefully some suckers will buy them, and the film's really just being the barest attempt at filmmaking and really just kind of going for, making a few £1,000s or dollars on each of them. I will say with Lawson's films, Ripper Untold and the Bram Stoker's Van Helsing movie, although they are very low budget movies and certainly maybe not the most exciting of films, I felt that there was reverence for the source material, and that Lawson took these properties a little bit more seriously than I think some of these other kind of low budget kind of filmmakers, and delivered at least more of an accomplished film, even though they may have had their issues. So how does Lawson deal with this movie? So this is actually inspired by true life events. Now, we have to use air quotes to that one quite liberally, because this is actually inspired by a real life event that happened in World War II, where a number of Japanese soldiers were retreating through the swampland, retreating from Allied soldiers, and they went through this particular kind of swampland, and many were killed by saltwater crocodiles. And it's said at the end of this movie, 1,000 Japanese soldiers went into the swamp, and only 20 came out. So that's the inspiration for this movie. Please note, this is not the story of the movie that you're going to see here. It's just kind of like an idea. Now, it does take place in World War II, and it's kind of the same kind of swamp and backdrop, but it focuses on a group of 4 British soldiers who are on a secret mission to photograph a munitions dump. Now, we have the older sergeant, we have 2 kind of British privates, and we have an Indian soldier as well along with them. And along the way, there's kind of various kind of confrontations between these kind of 4 characters, and ultimately they come afoul of a group of saltwater crocodiles. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So, what can I say that works in this movie? I think the actor who plays the character of Singh, who is the Indian soldier, was the star of the show for me in regards to acting. I thought he did the best job in regards to acting performance, and his character was certainly the most likeable and believable character out of all of them. There are a couple of amusing kind of lines here, believe it or not. In fact, there's a line, for example, which takes the piss out of a tried and tested movie trope, where someone's kind of showing a picture of their girlfriend, and another character says, well, that means you're going to die because you've kind of been banging on about your girlfriend all the time, which I thought was quite fun, even though it's obviously a much more of a modern trope. There's also a little bit of social commentary about racism and colonialism, which I think they did a fairly good job of. I mean, there was a little bit on the nose at times, but I can forgive. I think it was okay for the film. There's a couple of okay bits of photography here. We get a few drone shots, which kind of shows you, we're meant to believe obviously this is in kind of one of these Burmese islands, but there's a couple of even kind of tighter shots here where we just see this kind of like these, forestry settings and stuff like that, which I think they do a pretty good job with the look of the location and sets and stuff like that. However, this movie, unfortunately, I feel the ambition here outstrips the ability. With Lawson's other work, his Bram Stoker's Van Helsing and Ripper particularly, they were more character driven in smaller kind of sets. There were people talking in rooms for a lot of the movie, but that was suited to that kind of particular stories. Here we have 4 soldiers out in the jungle filled with Japanese soldiers and crocodiles, and the movie just doesn't have the budget to kind of make that as a believable setting. A lot of the shots here are clearly just on a kind of a black background and stuff like that with a bit of mist. So we never really get the sense that these people are actually in a real location. There are a couple of shots that they look like that, but it's kind of the budget just is showing through on a number of kind of levels, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. Okay, so the acting, with the exception of the one guy who plays the Indian soldier, I think unfortunately the acting from the other 3 actors wasn't the best. Again, some of kind of the director's previous works have been a little bit kind of mixed in regard to the acting. This to me was probably the weakest, because I felt that the majority of actors here didn't do a particularly kind of believable job. The dialogue sounds like written dialogue being read by actors who couldn't really perform to a realistic level. In fact, some of the kind of the line delivery here actually feels like someone's taking a piss, and someone's kind of like, like pretending to act, if that makes sense, is the best way I can describe it. Kind of like they're not taking this role seriously, and they're almost taking it like a spoof when it isn't. This is, the acting here, unfortunately, is pretty bad. The attention to kind of any type of realism is completely gone out the window. For example, just kind of like the uniforms that the soldiers are wearing. To be honest with you, you'd be forgiven for thinking they're just kind of going on some kind of expedition, because they certainly do not look like they're in any type of real uniform, and they don't act like soldiers. The sergeant looks far too old to be leading a secret mission and things like this. There's just some really kind of like silly moments in the movie. It's kind of, for example, we have our 4 soldiers go into the water, and it's about knee height at best, and one of the soldiers is suddenly kind of like, and they're all standing very close to each other in a kind of a tight-knit group. One of the soldiers is grabbed by a crocodile and dragged under the water in like knee-high water, but none of the soldiers see what's happening. They just go, "What's happening? Where did he go?" And it's ridiculous. We see another scene where they come close to the Japanese soldiers kind of come close to finding their position, and they're literally standing probably less than a foot away from them, and they can't see him, and things like this. And then after the first attack from the crocodiles, I mean, these characters seem to have never heard of a crocodile before, which is beggars belief. But they decide, even if you can buy that, they sleep right next to the kind of the bank of the water. So it's just like silly stuff. What else? Okay, here's maybe the 2 cardinal sins, I think, for the movie. Number 1, the crocodiles themselves. Again, movies like Ripper Untold, the Van Helsing movie, human antagonists, not expensive to do. Here we have crocodiles, where the majority of footage that you see is going to be stock footage. There is actually a practical effect, but it's clearly not very good, because you barely see it. All you ever see is like a little bit of a close-up, and it's probably like a puppet, like a hand puppet. You'll see very quick edits of this kind of like this hand puppet kind of biting down on like a fake leg or something, or you'll see a portion of its tail for like a few split seconds. So if you are expecting a full-on creature feature, you are going to be mightily disappointed here. So crocodile action, they're barely in it. Japanese soldiers, they're barely in it. So what might you be saying is filling up the running time here? Lots of dialogue. Lots of unnecessary dialogue as well. Lots of dialogue that does not move the plot forward. So we have, to run out the running time here, we have characters talk about their backstories quite a lot. We have characters talking about all sorts of stuff. And some of it maybe gives you some good character moments, like maybe like a little bit like the racism stuff, you know, social commentary and things like this. But a lot of it doesn't. A lot of it is just kind of like, has no real bearing on the plot or character motivations. It's just there to pad out the running time to make this a feature-length movie. So this to me was an ambitious idea that I feel does not have either the ability or the budget or both to make this an entertaining movie or a successfully made movie. And I always wonder why low-budget filmmakers would make a film which is clearly subpar, and kind of snookering themselves into never really progressing their careers. Now, like I said, I actually do think the director can do a good job here. Unlike a lot of these low-budget filmmakers, I have seen some good stuff from this director on a low-budget scale. And I think maybe his period pieces that are kind of more, you know, fit more into a better character-driven movie, like The Ripper Untold, for example, not too bad. Kind of that one feels like a genuine kind of like BBC-style drama. This one feels like a really kind of like poorly made B-movie, I have to say. It's just not a good film, this one. Not entertaining, a little bit of a slog to sit through, I won't lie. And I like low-budget creature features, so this is coming from someone who, you know, who enjoys these kind of movies. I think, you know, people who will be paying to see this, who want to see a creature feature, will be bitterly disappointed. And I'm sure no one sets out to make a bad film, but, you know, I don't know if people generally think they're making a good film with things like this. So I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 10. It was certainly a little bit of a struggle to watch, I won't lie to you. Have you seen it? Will you see it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.